Who should and who will be the next captain of the New York Rangers? Vincent Trocheck, Alexis Lafreniere, maybe even Will Cuylle? We debate on today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers.
You're Locked On the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1206 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Bilt Rewards. Start earning points on rent that you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNHL. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So a question that arose not too long ago, basically ever since the trade of Jacob Trouba was executed, and honestly, probably even a little bit before then, we've had kind of an off and on debate amongst all of us Ranger fans about who will be the next captain of the New York Rangers, who should be the next captain of the New York Rangers. What about the alternates? Do we need a complete shakeup as far as the leadership group is concerned? A lot of debate on that topic, and it will continue probably from now until, whenever the Rangers do decide to name a new captain. I don't think that's going to be during this current season. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. I do think the timing of the announcement of the next captain is going to have a lot to do with who ultimately wears the C for this team. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a little bit. But for right now, the first thing I want to do here, to be completely fair to the players on the New York Rangers right now, we've got 4 alternate captains that remain. I want to go ahead and give all 4 of them a free trial. I don't think, spoiler, that any of them will be the next captain of the New York Rangers. But the 4 alternates that I'm talking about are, of course, Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad, Adam Fox, and Artemi Panarin. And one more thing that I'll say here right off the top of the show, I'm not going to go ahead and take away the A from any of these 4 players while this season is ongoing. I feel like right now there are so many bad vibes around this team. There's so much drama surrounding this team. It would basically be like pouring gasoline on an inferno. So by no means am I going to take the A away from Kreider. Am I going to take the A away from Mika Zibanejad? There are some reports right now that there's about to be a mutiny as it is. And even though a lot of these guys aren't performing up to their standards, and in the case of Kreider and Mika, just don't look like themselves, to put it very, very mildly, even though that is the case, I feel like taking the A away from any of the alternate captains right now, you're going to do more harm than good. I know you're probably wondering how can things get any worse, but they probably can. And that would be a good bet to make that happen, would be to take the A away from one of these guys in the middle of the season. And I will say, even with these 4 players, they get the rest of the season, as far as I'm concerned, to put their best foot forward and kind of remind us why these guys were named alternate captains in the first place. So again, they get a fair trial. They get the rest of the season to figure this stuff out. But to look at them all individually, one at a time here, as far as will these guys be back as alternate captains next season? Will they be back at all in the case of some of these guys? And we'll start with Chris Kreider. I don't say this lightly. I think by opening night of next season, Chris Kreider will be an ex-New York Ranger. And that's a pretty impactful statement to make. I know a lot of us are down on Chris Kreider right now. I know for sure that I am. This is the longest tenured New York Ranger. It's a guy who's been here through a couple different eras of New York Ranger hockey. A guy that has been to the Stanley Cup final as a member of this team. A guy that's been to, I want to say, 4. It's at least 4 different Eastern Conference championship runs for this team. He's been a playoff performer. He's had some big time moments in the playoffs. But you look at what's going on lately, and you look at the way this team is just spiraling, and you look at the lack of energy, the lack of effort, the lack of any sort of edge or bite from this leadership group, from these veteran players. And to me, it starts with Chris Kreider. I know Jacob Trouba was the captain, but he's gone now. Somebody has to take the reins and take over as the de facto leader of this team. You would hope it would be Chris Kreider. And, there have been times recently where he's talked to the media and been very forthcoming, and we got to get it going. We got to get it together. But then the puck drops and you watch this team play hockey, and you watch Chris Kreider play hockey, and nothing really changes all that much. So as far as Kreider being an alternate next season, I'm not even so sure he's going to be here. And if I had to bet, I would say that he probably won't be here, because he does have the partial no move clause. I believe it's 15 teams, 15 or 16. I think it's 15 teams on his list. So you can deal him to one of the other teams. And I get the feeling that that's probably what we're looking at this point, because I think the Rangers, if this season continues to go the way that it's going right now, they're going to look to turn their page to a new era of Ranger hockey. And I'm just not so sure that Drury or whoever the GM at that time that's making the decisions is going to be, is going to look at Kreider as somebody who, needs to be here throughout the duration of his contract. So again, I don't say it lightly, but as far as Kreider being an alternate next year, my money is on him not even being here next year. And I cannot believe it's come to this, but that's kind of where I'm at with it. Mika Zibanejad, look, we know he's got the full no move clause. He's got 5 years left on his deal after this current season expires. The full no move clause lasts throughout basically the entire contract, with 1 week to go before the trade deadline in the final season of his deal. He no longer has that full no move clause. Who knows what's going to be going on 5 years from now? But the bottom line, if Mika Zibanejad doesn't want to go anywhere, he doesn't have to go anywhere, and he has every single right to use that clause to his advantage. He had it put in his contract. He negotiated the deal. That's the deal that he got. There's really not much we can do. And I've talked about this before in the past, but as far as Mika Zibanejad and his future with this team, and if you're looking to move on from Mika Zibanejad in one way or another, there's almost no way out of this contract, because I just mentioned the full no move clause. So if he doesn't want to accept a trade, he doesn't have to. But even if he was willing to accept a trade, what GM is going to look at what Mika Zibanejad has put on tape recently and say, yep, that's what our team needs. We need exactly that for the rest of this season plus 5 more years. I don't think that GM exists. I can't imagine that any of those GMs in hockey, unless you just see this as like a massive buy low opportunity and you really think this guy can put it back together and just needs a change of scenery. That's the only way. But even that, you're rolling the dice, because Mika Zibanejad just hasn't shown anything positive this season. So I do think Mika will be back next year, but I don't think you can continue to roll with him as the alternate captain. Not if he's going to play like this. And we've got over half the season remaining. I want to say the Rangers right now are 30 games into the season, so that means you got 52 left, which is a scary thought in its own right now. But that's the situation that we're looking at right here. So if Mika Zibanejad could put it back together, look like he actually wants to be out there, play some hockey, at least start producing points-wise, at least start, playing a little bit better defensive hockey. Give me something. Show me something, Mika. If Mika doesn't show anything between now and the end of the season, though, and we'll see where everything stands, do the Rangers make the playoffs? Do they even win a series or two? Who's to say for sure that would be impossible? Right now, though, again, this team is spiraling. He's one of the leaders, and he just looks like he doesn't even want to be there. And I apologize if that's not the case, but sometimes perception is reality. And when you watch Mika Zibanejad play hockey right now, it's ugly. It just doesn't look good. So Mika, again, if he wants to come back next year, like I said, there's pretty much nothing that anybody can do about it, but you can take away the A, and I think the Rangers should and likely will do just that. But we'll talk more about that in a little bit, because at the end of the episode, I'm going to do my picks for the captain and the alternate captains next season. Adam Fox, he can keep the A next season, but I'm keeping my eye on Adam Fox, because Fox right now, and there has been some criticism kind of arising for Fox on social media. The one thing that's kind of working in his advantage, and this tells you exactly where the Rangers are right now, and I've mentioned this in the past, Adam Fox is not the complete liability that a lot of his teammates are right now, but it's not like he's putting together a great season. I think, honestly, this is probably the worst we've seen him play, the least impactful season that he's made, at least thus far, as a member of the New York Rangers. He just looks like he's going through the motions out there. This does not look like the dynamic, Norris Trophy winning, perennial Norris Trophy candidate that we've come to know and love over the seasons. There's just not a whole lot going on. Adam Fox just does not impact the game in any meaningful way, or at least he hasn't recently. So Fox right now, as of now, he can keep the A next season, but we're keeping an eye on him. Artemi Panarin, he's the last alternate captain. I'm going to leave the A on Artemi Panarin. I don't really think he's going to be a candidate to be the next captain of this team, especially when you consider that he only has 1 year left on his contract. And he previously had mentioned that, he thinks that the captaincy should go to somebody else. I think he said, obviously the language barrier. And, he speaks some English for sure, but he talked about that himself. He's very open and honest about it, and I give him props for that. Panarin, look, people tend to gravitate to the best player on the team at any level of any sport. I think that's true to a degree. And when you look at Artemi Panarin, as far as just pure skill, pure talent is concerned, his is obviously through the roof. And no matter what your personality is or what the situation might be, when you're the best and most talented player on your team, you're going to basically become a de facto leader, whether you like it or not. Again, people just kind of gravitate naturally to that player. So I think Artemi Panarin, might as well leave him as the alternate captain for next season. I mean, it's the last year of his contract anyway. Are you really going to strip him of the A? That wouldn't really make a lot of sense. And I think among the leadership group, the leadership group that currently exists on this team, as far as the guys that wear the letters right now, to me, Panarin has shown a little bit more than Fox, than Kreider, than Mika. That's kind of a low bar right now. But I think Artemi Panarin most nights is going out there and competing. He's in a dry spell just like everybody else. But I don't see the point in taking away the A from Artemi Panarin, especially when he's only got 1 year left on his contract. So that's kind of where things stand. In just a second, we're going to shift our attention to the top candidates to be the next Ranger captain. And I'm going to also explain why I believe that the timing of the next Ranger captain, whenever the Rangers decide they want to announce their next captain, that's going to have a lot to do with who ultimately wears the C. I'll explain what I mean by that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by SelectQuote. The World Series, Super Bowl, the Olympics. The world's top athletes get to play these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing, teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. Other life insurance brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less, while SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. You invest so much time to take care of yourself and to be the healthiest, best version of you. SelectQuote's exclusive policies can reward that effort. SelectQuote, they shop, you save. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Go to selectquote.com/lockedonnhl today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is also brought to you by Bilt Rewards. If you're a renter, listen up. This is a total game changer. Thanks to Bilt, you can now earn points on rent paychecks, just like you do with groceries or travel. Paying rent now comes with serious perks, and it is completely free to join. Earn valuable Bilt points on your rent and everyday spending at no extra cost. Redeem points for flights, hotel stays, and even future rent payments. With over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels in their program, the possibilities are endless. Access unique experiences that are exclusive to Bilt members. Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnhl. That is joinbuilt, BILT.com/lockedonnhl. Make sure to use our link so they know we sent you. Don't wait. Start earning rewards today. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on this episode of Locked On New York Rangers. Huge shout out to the everydayers. As always, Rangers going to be back in action a little bit later tonight against the Predators in a battle of the two most disappointing teams in the NHL thus far this season. Basically, you've got a get-right opportunity for both teams at the expense of the other. Whichever team loses this game, I mean, it's a complete disaster. It's a complete catastrophe, and I don't even know where you go from there. And honestly, whichever team wins this game, you're not really in that much better of a situation than you were in coming into this game. So I don't know, man. It's kind of a lose-lose situation for both teams. But you know what? Bottom line, Rangers are still, for all the troubles they've had, 15-14-1. They can still get everything rolling. They're like a point out of the playoffs. It's possible to turn things around, but they obviously have to show a lot better than they have over the past month. This has been a sustained stretch of just awful hockey, and it's got to turn somewhere, and you just hope that it's tonight. But as far as today in this debate of the next captain, like I said, I think that the timing of the next Ranger captain is going to have a lot to do with who gets to wear the C next. I say that there are 3 different candidates right now that I'm looking at that could be named the captain depending on when the Rangers decide to go with the next captain. I believe if the Rangers decide to announce a new captain before the start of next season, anytime before the start of next season, even including the preseason games. You can go through the preseason and then name a captain right before opening night. I think if the Rangers announce a new captain before the start of next season, that you're probably looking at Vincent Trocheck. Trocheck is going to turn 32 this summer. Feels like kind of a good age to be named the captain of your team. I mean, you can maybe go a little bit younger in some instances, and certainly there have been players that have been named captain before their early 30s. But, Trocheck's a veteran. He's been in the league for about a decade or so, whatever it is at this point, probably even a little bit longer than that by now. But, going into next season, he will be going into his fourth season with the New York Rangers. So obviously he knows what the scene is all about. He understands New York Ranger hockey. And as bad as things are right now, Vincent Trocheck has been a part of some winning. Obviously, the deep playoff run this past season, he's somebody that certainly presents himself as very accountable after games, has more self-awareness or seems to have more self-awareness than a lot of these Ranger veteran players when he talks about how it just hasn't been good enough and talks about tangible things that the Rangers actually have to do to turn things around a little bit. Talking about how guys have to step out of their comfort zone a little bit. Now, the other thing here, too, as far as Trocheck's case, you get some stability at the captaincy position because he is signed for 4 more years after this one. However, something that I should point out here, he's got the full no-move clause right now, but that goes away starting next season for Vincent Trocheck, and he will be 32 at that time. So it depends, whether it's jury or if there's a new GM in place. Do they see Vincent Trocheck as being vital to this team, or do they see him as part of a rebuild/retooling going forward? If it's the latter, then Vincent Trocheck won't be the captain because you would trade him and flip him and get assets, young players, draft picks, whatever it might be. But again, 4 more years left on his contract. If you name him the captain, then you've got to commit to him. We don't want another 1 or 2 year captain here. We want somebody that's going to wear the C for at least a handful of seasons going forward. Vincent Trocheck, like I said, his full no-move clause goes away at the start of next season. For next year, he can block a trade to any of 12 different teams. The year after that, he can block a trade to any of 10 different teams. And then for the final 2 years on his contract, he can block a trade to any of 6 different teams. So again, it depends. Do you see, if you're the GM of this team, whether that's Drury or somebody else, is this a guy that you build around? Is this a guy that he's our veteran leader? He's the dude. He's going to wear the C for the next bunch of years. Or again, do you tear everything down? I don't think the Rangers need a full-on, full-fledged teardown rebuild like they did when the letter went out, because there are enough young pieces in place, enough valuable players here that you can do kind of a retooling, kind of like the Capitals and Devils did last year. And of course, those are the 2 teams that are, I believe, on the top of the Metro Division at this moment. And the Capitals are doing it without Ovechkin right now, which is even crazier. But yeah, bottom line, it depends what you, as the GM, believe Vincent Trocheck's worth is to this team going forward. If you're going to have him stick around and finish out his contract, or at least the majority of his contract with this team, then I think for sure he's probably your GM next season. The only thing I'll say against, Trocheck right now is that it's not like he's having a great season either. It's easy to fixate on a lot of the guys that we already mentioned. He hasn't played well. And the thing that kind of annoys me about Trocheck right now is we're not seeing that same fire, that same intensity. I mean, it's there to a degree on the ice. We do see a little bit of it, but where's the dude that's always getting in people's faces? Where's the dude that's always driving his opponents crazy? We saw a ton of that last season. We've seen barely any of that from Vincent Trocheck last season. So I'd like to see him step it up a little bit in that department. I mean, the scoring being down is one thing. He's got 18 points in 30 games this season after 77 points in 82 games last season. But again, where's that guy that's an agitator and a, bleep stir and whatever expression you want to use. But despite my feelings on that, I still think that if the Rangers name a captain before next season, it should and likely will be Vincent Trocheck. Now, if the Rangers do not announce a captain this offseason, but they do announce a captain the year after that, my prediction is that it will be Alexis Lafreniere. As we know, Lafreniere has not played quite as well since signing that contract extension earlier this season. That is concerning to a degree. I'm hoping we can eventually look back on this and just, realize that Lafreniere was going through a little bit of a slump, as are most of the players on this Ranger team right now. And, he'll go back to being the player that he looked like certainly last season. In the playoffs last year, he was awesome. And even at the start of this season, he got off to a white-hot start for this Ranger team. But again, if you want to get a little bit younger as far as the leadership group is concerned, Alexis Lafreniere could be your guy. He's obviously signed for 6 more years after, this one ends. Or he got the 7-year extension. So if we fast forward 2 off seasons, yes, there will be 6 years left on his contract at that point. I know there's some people trying to talk themselves into the idea that maybe do a package for Brady Tkachuk and maybe Lafreniere as part of that package. To me, that's just kind of fan-created stuff. I just don't see that happening. But, we've heard about the intangibles that Lafreniere possesses ever since, before he was even drafted. So if the Rangers do eventually turn the page on this core group of leaders, the four that are in place right now, I think Alexis Lafreniere could be the guy leading kind of the next charge of these young Ranger players. And again, they are in a better situation now than they were when the letter went out because there are more young, talented players in place with this team now than there were then. Maybe Alexis Lafreniere is the guy to lead the charge for that. And like I said, I think if they wait another season past this one right now and past the following season, that Alexis Lafreniere could very well be the guy. And Lafreniere, I thought he looked quite a bit better in this most recent game against the Blues. He was out there with Cuylle and Cuylle. That seemed to get him going a little bit. They looked dangerous many times. And of course, combined to get Will Cuylle a goal, late in that game. But, we'll see how it goes. But I think Lafreniere, if they hold off, if they don't announce a captain for this upcoming season, but they wait one more season after that, I think Lafreniere is your guy. One more scenario here. The Rangers don't announce a captain for this upcoming year, and they don't announce a captain for the year after that. You wait a little bit longer. If it happens anytime after that, I think the next captain of this New York Ranger team is Will Cuylle. Right now, I think it's a little bit too early to make Will Cuylle the captain. He's 22 years old. Not that you can't possibly do that, because we've seen captains, wear the C at a very young age. Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin certainly come to mind, and there's been others throughout history as well. But yeah, I think I'm waiting a little bit longer. Will Cuylle is just coming into his own right now, becoming just a big-time player for this Ranger team. The absolute lock this season for the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award. He had that locked up by like mid-November, I think, and he certainly will win that award. But I think that, again, if you want to go younger as far as the leadership group is concerned, I think Will Cuylle is certainly an option. A guy that, plays straight line hockey, certainly plays physical hockey. He's got that blend of talent and physicality that I think Ranger fans are just dying to see right now from somebody. And I think Will Cuylle is certainly the guy leading the charge there. Good defensive forward as well. The effort's always there in all three zones with Will Cuylle. And this is somebody that I think is beginning to show more fire and maybe even a little bit more leadership as well. You saw after he scored that goal against the Blues, the Rangers were down 3-0. They get a goal from Berard that knocked it down to 3-1 with about 9 minutes to go. And then a minute and a half after that, or whatever it was, Will Cuylle scores, and he's all fired up, and he's going to the bench, and he's doing the hand motion. Like, come on, guys, let's keep going. So you're already starting to see him, step into a little bit of a leadership role. And I think if you wait a little longer, Will Cuylle, I don't think would be the captain going into this next season. Maybe the year after that, certainly the year after that. By then, I think for sure he'd be ready to take on that role for the New York Rangers. And one fun fact that I had to throw out there with Will Cuylle, I thought about this not too long ago, and it's something that I think a lot of people are mostly aware of, but it just blows my mind that they basically got Will Cuylle for Elias Anderson. The Rangers traded Elias Anderson. They got a second-round pick in return for Anderson. How they pulled that off, I'll never understand, but that's what they got. And they used that second-round draft pick then to draft Will Cuylle. And Elias Anderson, after he left the Rangers, played a grand total of 43 more NHL games, all with the Kings. When I looked that up before this episode, I was stunned to find out it was even that many. I was shocked that Elias Anderson got that many more NHL games. But he did. Bottom line, we're never looking back, and we're not giving Will Cuylle back because he's a huge part of the future of New York Ranger hockey, and certainly somebody that I think could, should, and will at least be in the running to be the next episode of, or to be the next captain of the New York Rangers. But we shall see. So in just a minute, I'm going to take a look at next year's captain. I'm going to do some predictions. Who's going to be the captain next year? Who will be the alternate captains next year? And I'm going to throw out some names as far as like some dark horse candidates as well. That's going to be fun. We'll do that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by PrizePicks. If you love sports, you're going to love PrizePicks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your favorite sports, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in on the action. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on PrizePicks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30 million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, PrizePicks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up today's episode with some predictions as far as who makes up the leadership committee next season. And I also want to start this section by talking a little bit about some dark horse candidates for alternate captain and one even for captain as well. We'll start with the alternates. We'll work our way up to a dark horse pick for the next New York Ranger captain. I have one player in mind for that. Dark horses for alternate next season. I'm going to throw out Sam Carrick. He's somebody that, to me, has played his role this season. He's played it admirably. There's not really any scoring to speak of. I think he's got like one goal. He scored the first goal of the season for the Rangers. I'm not sure he scored since then. He's got, a handful of assists, maybe like 6 or 7, but that's not what he's here for. Sam Carrick is here to play hard-nosed hockey, to win faceoffs. He's done an excellent job of that, to kill penalties. Obviously, the Rangers, despite all their struggles, their PK remains near the top of the league. I think they were number 2 going into that game against the Blues. Not sure if they're still there, but bottom line, still a very, very good penalty kill unit. He's had a hand in that as well. Somebody that finishes his checks, somebody that's accountable, somebody that mixes it up with his opponents. It feels like anytime there's like a skirmish going on between the Rangers and their opponents right now, there's a pretty good chance that Sam Carrick's going to be in the middle of that. And if you want to just go the way of the grizzled veteran, just throw an egg on one of those guys, I think Sam Carrick could be your guy. Now, one of the drawbacks for somebody like Carrick is that, yes, he does have 2 more years left on his contract after this one, but he's somebody that if his play slips at all, I feel like he's somebody that could end up being, a casualty to a trade, a casualty to possibly even being placed on waivers, because every year, we've talked about this in the past, but there's always going to be a couple players on your roster at the start of the season where, okay, if this guy doesn't play well, he's going to be squeezed out by an AHL call-up. And I think Sam Carrick was in that spot coming into the season, and props to him for, playing good hockey and being in the lineup for every single game. He hasn't been a healthy scratch all season. Will that continue, though, for another 2 seasons? I'm not so sure that it will. So that's kind of a drawback on going with Carrick. But if you want to just go with a grizzled veteran player that does the little things right and plays the game hard, Sam Carrick could be an option. I think also an option for alternate candidate next year, an option for alternate captain next year, a candidate for that position would be Braden Schneider. Obviously, Schneider, young player, coming into his own in the NHL. He hasn't been great. None of the Ranger defensemen recently have been great at all, but I think overall this season, in terms of the more steady, consistent Ranger players, and certainly one of the more steady and consistent Ranger defensemen, I think Braden Schneider is pretty high on that list. He's a hard-hitting player, seems to play hard every single game. I think if you want to go young for one of your alternate captains and have another defenseman in addition to Adam Fox, I think Braden Schneider is very likely your guy. And I'll also say this, I think you could throw Will Cuylle in here as well. Like I said, we talked about him in the last section as far as being the next Ranger captain somewhere down the road. I don't think we're there yet as far as making Cuylle the captain, but when you look at the brand of hockey that Will Cuylle has been playing this season, I think there's a very good possibility that he could step right into that role as an alternate captain next year. And if you're the Rangers and you do see him as captain material somewhere down the road, not the worst idea to start him as an alternate, maybe have him in that role for a season or 2, and then you start talking about potentially making him your captain. So, yeah, for that reason, I think Cuylle could be an option here as well, kind of a dark horse candidate to be an alternate captain. Now, how about a dark horse candidate to be the captain of the team next season, the season after that, whatever it might be? Dark horse candidate, I threw this out there on Twitter the other day. I'm going to say Filip Chytil. Filip Chytil has been through absolute hell, through absolutely no fault of his own. Obviously, all the concussion issues and whatnot. The guy keeps getting back up. He keeps picking himself off the ice, getting back up, getting back into things. I know we all kind of hold our breath whenever he's out there, whenever he takes a hit, whenever he goes down to the ice in any fashion, because we're all very well aware of, things that he's gone through. The reason why, or one of the reasons why you probably can't go with Filip Chytil is basically what I just said. All the concussion, history there. We don't know when Filip Chytil is going to miss more time. And obviously we keep our fingers crossed that that doesn't happen. But you look at last season, he has a concussion early in the year and he never got back out there until the playoffs. He only played 10 regular season games. So you don't want to have like kind of an absentee captain. And again, that would be through no fault of Filip Chytil's. He's doing everything he can to, play hockey and stay on the ice. But for that reason, that's why I think Chytil is a major dark horse candidate. There's things to like there. He won the Good Guy Award from the Rangers media members, which goes to the player that's the most, helpful and honest and forthcoming with their answers in the locker room. Filip Chytil won that, I want to say 2 seasons ago. I know he's won it in the past. But yeah, for all those reasons, I think Chytil is a dark horse candidate. Don't know that I would sign off on it, though, just because of the concussion history and the fact that, if something does happen, God forbid, Now you're going without a captain again. So I think for that reason, it's probably unlikely that Filipino will be the next captain. But I want to mention him as at least a dark horse candidate. Okay, so who are my picks for, Ranger captain, Ranger alternates next year? This is what I'm going to go with. Captain, there is none. They're not going to name one. I think once a new New York Ranger captain is named, you should go with somebody younger. I don't know that they're ready to throw the C on somebody like Alexis Lafreniere or Will Cuylle for this upcoming season. And I also think that there's probably going to be a new New York Ranger coach next season. I tweeted the other day, and apparently some people agree, some people disagree too. I would like to see Peter Laviolette back next year with a retooled roster. A couple of the veterans can be back, but we're going to retool the roster, to a certain extent, and kind of build around this young core that the Rangers have here. Because if you watch these Ranger games, the guys that aren't putting in the effort, the guys that aren't giving you, their best out there right now, it's the veterans. It's not the young players. The young players, for the most part on this Ranger team, are going full bore every single game, and they're playing their tails off for Peter Laviolette. So I would like to see what he could do with those young players. Plus, again, maybe some other veterans that you bring in, you retool the roster a little bit. Do I think that's going to happen, though? Probably not. I'm not even sure Laviolette's going to make it through this season. But the bottom line, if the Rangers do have a new coach next year, then we let it play out the same way we did with Gerard Gallant in his first year. You got a new coach. Get a feel for the room, see the dynamic between the players, let somebody naturally step into that role as the next captain of the New York Rangers, and then you name one the following season. So my pick for next year, no captain at all, play one season without one. Hey, it worked pretty well the last time that the Rangers went without a captain. They had 6 alternates. That was the year they made it to the conference final against all odds, and things were fun back then. They're not quite as much fun right now. As far as alternate captains, here's my picks for next season. Panarin, for all the reasons I just mentioned, earlier in the episode. Best player, guys are going to gravitate toward him. He's one of the veterans in the room. I think most nights he is giving you an honest effort. Things just haven't really gone all that well for him recently. Adam Fox gets to keep the A, but like I said, I'm keeping an eye on Adam Fox for the rest of the season. We're going to go with Vincent Trocheck due to him being accountable and seemingly a leader on the ice. There was that image of him hugging Igor Shesterkin after the playoff run concluded last season. So we'll go with Vincent Trocheck as an alternate captain next year. We're also going to go with Alexis Lafreniere. It's time to put the A on him. You might be setting him up to be the next captain of this team as well. Same thing with Will Cuylle. He's going to be an alternate captain. Again, you're getting some representation for some of the young guys on this team, and Braden Schneider, again, another young guy. So we're borrowing the Ranger formula from a few seasons ago. I know people were laughing back then. There's probably some people laughing right now. We're going no captain, 6 alternates for next year. Again, you've got 4 forwards. You've got 2 defensemen. You've got some veteran players like Panarin, Trocheck. I would even put Adam Fox as kind of a veteran player at this point. He'll be 27 next year, and obviously he's been in the NHL for quite some time now. And then you've got some young guys. You've got 3 young guys as well, Lafreniere, Cuylle, and Schneider. I think that's a nice, well-rounded group, and you let the next captain of this Ranger team naturally emerge from this group, and you name a new captain the following season. My bet would probably be Alexis Lafreniere, but we'll see how things shake out. But I like this. You guys let me know, though. There's going to be a whole lot of different ideas and different predictions and different suggestions, but this is my leadership group for next year if I'm the one making the decision, which of course I am not. But you guys let me know. Figure we can call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well at LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's at LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.